Howdy, it's tubalcain once again, and this is episode number 31B of my What Is It series, and this is the answer. Watch 31A for the question. And this caricature, of course, that my wife picked up for me for $5 at an antique store is the old schnozola himself, Jimmy Durante, star of stage, vaudeville, movies, and TV. And he always wore an old felt hat, and he sang silly songs like Ink, a Dink, a Dink, and always signed off by saying, "And good night, Mrs. Calabash, wherever you are." And so many got this right that I just have to say that now I know the average age of my audience is 65 or over. And now here's the answers for the other mystery tools. I really thought I would have people stumped on some of these, but virtually everyone seemed to be well known. This little C-clamp, and I had this covered, is called a Lubra clamp, and there are the patent numbers, although I looked this up and really couldn't find anything, so I think this is just strictly a patent pending. And the purpose of it is to grease leaf springs on older cars, and I thought that someone said Chrysler cars, and there's a grease zerk right here to use your grease gun. And at first I thought it was to grease between the leaves to prevent squeaking, but apparently the swing pin or the pivot pin or the anchor pin gets greased by this to stop squeaks. So kind of a neat tool, and that again was sent to me by Don from Uma Junk Collector. Thank you, Don. This tool was correctly identified by several people, and it's made by the Alligator Lacing Company for lacing conveyor belts. There's the catalog number and little information about it. And not all of it is here. There would have been a track, probably aluminum extrusion, that goes into this T-slot that could then be held onto the conveyor belt, which could be quite wide, and it's an extremely tough material, like, and it has reinforcing in it and so on. But at any rate, you would use it like this, back and forth across the belting on that guide to get it square, perfectly square. Otherwise it wouldn't ride right after it was spliced. And then since the belt was so tough, I assumed that you did it a little bit at a time. Scored it over and over and over, changing the depth just a little bit each time. So that's pretty awesome. And you recognize the gator there. They still make these, I believe, in McMaster car. Some of those belts are 1, 2, maybe even 3 feet wide, and they need to be cut square, and I don't mean with an X-Acto knife. So that's what that item is. And by the way, thanks to Matt Parker for sending me the alligator cutter. He's out of Sparta, Illinois. Now, when I was at Arnfest a couple weeks ago, I met a man by the name of Ted. He was a dentist, is a dentist up in Wisconsin, and he gave this to me at Arnfest at the swap meet and said that it would be interesting to show. I was shocked that anyone knew what it was. Of course, it's a balance that's used by dentists, and there it says Silverloy. I believe this is Bakelite, proportional scale, or proportional scale. And there is the company. This is probably from the 20s or 30s. Ted said that he never used it. It was in the dental office when he started. The purpose of this balance or scale is to get the right proportion of mercury on that end, and the alloy, which was silver and I suppose other materials, and it could not be mixed ahead of time. It had to be done just moments before it was applied to that cavity that he had just drilled out, and it sets in there like this. And I really haven't seen it used, but I assume that you already had some of the alloy in there, and then you put the mercury on this side and got the correct amount, and then these little funnels would be used to pour it into that tiny little container that goes into an even tinier paint shaker. And I remember Dr. Schott mixing that up, saying, "All right, Pat, mix the amalgam," as my mouth was stretched to its maximum. Thank you, Ted, for this interesting item. And supposedly they're still using this mercury, although my current dentist uses something else, I think, so that he could give me the maximum bill. Should be $6. It used to be $6. Unrealistically, it can't still be $6 to fill a tooth. Probably $100 now or more. Virtually everybody had this item. That's called a gimlet. A gimlet. They came in different sizes, different configurations. I've seen some with just a wire looped handle. I think they still make a version of this, and it is used, it's a drill is what it is. Now, I didn't understand it, but I guess it's just to pre-drill holes before you put a screw in. But I thought it was to drill, just to drill a hole. And in some ways it's like an auger bit in that it has a tiny screw on the end to pull itself into the wood. And it wouldn't be for real deep holes, but a little pressure to get it started, and it will drill actually rather nicely. I'm showing this. I had some guy chew me out, say, "Don't just tell us what the tools are, show how they're used." Well, sometimes I don't know how they're used. This one is bent a bit. Somebody must have used it in oak. So that's a gimlet. That was from my own personal collection. And finally, I was surprised that several people knew what these are. And again, I was at Fulton, Illinois on a trip in a little museum there, and it's a Dutch museum. They have a windmill and so on there. So this was pretty awesome. And they had a display there. Now, when I showed this picture the first time, I had to be careful not to put those wooden shoes in the picture, because, of course, these are the chisels that would be used to carve out wooden shoes in the Netherlands and Holland. And they were rather long. There was the sign, "Antique tools for making wooden shoes." Pretty old. Oh, and one of the guys that didn't know this was from Holland. Look at the comments, if you will. Then they had some shoes there to show how this was done, and some other implements there, other chisels, and the kind of bench that they would have used. There's some old guys making wooden shoes. So that completes this video. Thanks for watching.